Okay, so buongiorno Italia. Tutto bene? Okay, good. That's my Italian done. Okay, so getting started with Nuxt and static sites. Okay, so as you said, my name is Debbie. I'm a front-end tech lead at Patterson Agency, which is a digital agency in Mallorca. I live in Mallorca, which is quite cool. I'm originally Irish. I'm a mentor at Open Classrooms, Slack moderator at Treehouse, and I contribute to Webpack. And that's my Twitter handler if you want to take a photograph, and then you can follow me on Twitter. So Nuxt, why Nuxt? Nuxt is a wrapper built on top of Webpack and Vue. That's all it is, really. So why do I need a framework on top of a framework? Let me tell you a little secret. I actually didn't like Nuxt at start. Sorry. I was like, why do I need to build a framework on top of a framework? I just want to use Vue, okay? I just want to use Vue. I don't need this. But for server-side rendering, you can just use Vue server render. So I did. And implementing it was hard. Maybe you've done it. Maybe you're a better developer than me, but it was hard. I also needed dynamic pages. And what do you do when you need help? Yeah, I need a dynamic page. I need server-side rendering. This wasn't working. So basically, I picked up the phone, and I called head office of Vue. I actually called the Vue core team member, Eduardo. I don't know if you know Eduardo. He's a Vue core team member. And I picked up the phone to him, and I said, look, I've got a big problem here. I've got to get this app out. I need server-side rendering. I need dynamic pages. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And you know what he said? You got to use Nuxt for that. That's a true story, actually. And I was like, yeah, I already knew that, but I didn't want to use Nuxt. So I started going back and using Nuxt again. Why do you need a framework on top of a framework? Pretty much because Eduardo said so. That's what I told my bosses. But really, it's because the core team members of Vue are recommending Nuxt. That meant that it's not just a framework that's being built aside. It's being a framework that's being built aligned with Vue, and it's basically, you're not really using another framework that's just out there. It's all aligned with Vue, so you are using Vue completely. So why should you use Nuxt? Well, Nuxt helps you write universal apps more simply. You've got code splitting out of the box, dynamic pages and routes, you can generate static sites, and you've got great search engine and optimization. And Nuxt makes it easy to create universal apps. Universal apps, we saw a universal app is code that it can execute on both the client and the server. A single-page application, as you know, no page refreshes, but many crawlers find it difficult to parse and understand the website, especially if you're getting data from your API. So going back to universal apps, preloads your application on a server. It sends the rendered HTML to the browser for every single route. It improves your search engine optimization, and it makes loading happen faster. When you load your universal app, you get the title, the meta, the head, the H1, the body, etc., before any JavaScript is loaded. This helps the crawlers determine what's on the page. From a single-page application, you've got your div ID equals app, and then inside you've got nothing until the JavaScript loads. So this is really useful for search engine optimization. Then we've got static sites. Static sites, it will generate HTML for every one of your routes. The routes are pre-rendered. The page loads faster. It helps search engines and social media crawlers. There is no server needed. And everything gets generated during the build phase. Hang on a moment. Aren't we going back into the 90s here? No, back in time, building static sites. We're in everyone wants single-page applications, right? So why on earth are we going to build a static site? Well, the 90s was a really cool era, especially for web development. Who here built a site in the 90s? Okay, quite a few of us, cool. So you remember how cool it was back then. This is actually still live, okay? This is still live. You can go and check it out. It's really cool, and this is what we did. Accessibility is fantastic here. I actually think it's cool. Just repeat the background image all over again. And do you remember the frames? Yeah, that was just cool. So 90s development is pretty cool, right? Static sites in the 90s? Nah, not so cool. Not so cool. But it's not a 90s static site. When a user visits your static website, the hydration process kicks in, and your application becomes a single-page application. Let me do that again, because that's really, really important. When a user visits your site, the hydration process kicks in, and your application becomes a single-page application. Hang on a moment. What is hydration? Does anyone know what hydration is? One person. Let me show you. This is hydration. I'm Irish, remember? This is hydration. Okay, so hydration is hydration is magic, okay? You do not need to know how it works. You do not need to know the concept of it. You just need to know it's magic, and it just makes it work. It makes a static site act like a single-page application. You get all the single-page application benefits and all the static site benefits. How cool is that? It's a match made in heaven. So you get universal rendering without the need of a server. So you can host on GitHub, Netlify, Amazon, etc. It's faster. Okay, you've got pre-generated static sites. It's cheaper. You don't need a server. It's safer. You're less prone to attacks. Static generated or pre-rendered means to pre-render the application once during build and serve it as a single-page application. As the Nuxt team put out, for all of you who struggle with the difference between server-side rendering and static site generation is equal to, triple equals, server-side rendering only at build time. Does everyone get what a static site is now? Yes? Cool. Would you like to see one? Sure. Okay. So Patterson Travel is the company I'm working on, the site I'm working on, and we built it as a static site in Nuxt. Okay, if you want to see a live example, you can actually go to your phone and you can actually type patterson.travel, so you can see that this is not a slide and I'm not just making it up, that it is actually a live website. Okay, and if you, oh, you want me to take that? There you go. Okay, and if you go to here, you can see this is the actual website, and you can see the performance test. Performance test is pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with that. Accessibility, we're working on it. There's still a couple of things I could improve on that. It's orange, and I want it to be green. Best practices, I'm pretty good on best practices, but I could improve a little bit more. But what's really, really, really important, top corner, search engine optimization 100. Okay, so this is a static site. It's a single-page application. I'm going to do something now that I'm going to try and check it out and see if we can actually see it live. So bear with me. If you haven't already got it on your phone, then I suggest you do. There we go. This is the site. Now I've got to find my mouse and see. Ooh, there we go. So this is it, okay? As you can see, single-page application, but it's actually a static site. I can change the language. I can come along here. I go to services. I can go down here, click a service. Static site. What do you think? Gotta find my mouse now. There we go. Okay. So this is why you should use a static site, because basically you've got great performance, you've got your server-side rendering, you've got everything, but it looks and feels like a single-page application. It's fast. Our front-end team on using a Nuxt static site. And our marketing team on using a Nuxt static site. Everyone's happy, right? So, you know, why should we use a single-page application when we can have everything? So best practices for Nuxt and search engine optimization. Who here builds and needs to worry about search engine optimization? Okay, about half of you, okay? I hate having to worry about it because like it's just simpler if we just build single-page applications and ship them out. But we have to worry about it for most projects. So best practices, Nuxt uses Vue meta to handle the head element in each of your pages. And there are 3 ways to set up the head element. So you have a default meta tag for all of your pages. And you can set this in the Nuxt config. Then you can set up the meta tags for each page individually by defining a head element. We've seen that already. And you can set up the meta tags for your dynamic pages as well. Okay, so dynamic routes. Dynamic routes are defined by prefixing your Vue page in the pages folder with an underscore. How easy is that? Just put an underscore. So pages users underscore username dot view or pages blog underscore ID or underscore slug will basically allow you to be able to create a dynamic page. How easy. To then generate the dynamic routes, you need to add it to the generate option in your Nuxt config. By default, Nuxt will not generate a static file for any dynamic routes as it does not know what the ID or slug will be. Nuxt is magic, it's very clever, but you need to tell it what the ID is going to be. It doesn't know, okay? So All you got to do is say, generate me the root user 1, user 2, user 3. This could be user Bob, user Maria, user Sophia. Simple as that, right? That generates your index per root, so you can see it here, users 1, index.html, users 2, users 3. But wait a second. What if I have 100 users or blog posts, or I don't know the name of the ID, what the name will be? It's not very dynamic, right? So you just use a function that returns a promise. Okay, use generate, you call your roots, and you use a function, basically return the Axios, get your users from your API, and then return the data, map over the user, and you get your user, return users plus user ID. That's it. If there's 100 in your API, you get 100 roots. If there's 1, you get 1. You can also speed that up with a payload, so you can generate the roots function, return the Axios, and then just basically put the payload in user, and then you can access the payload from the user's ID. If it's got a payload, then you return the user payload, and if not, you go and fetch it from your API. So that just basically speeds it up, so you're not always fetching your data. Okay, so a Nuxt boilerplate. When you're setting up your project, I always like to have a boilerplate. Even though Nuxt gives you pretty much everything, it doesn't give me everything I want. So I always have to add that little bit extra. So before I start, I add my linters, I set up my prettier, set up my pre-comment hooks, I set up my meta for all my search engine optimization, and I set up my testing. Okay, so for prettier and your prettier or c.js, you can just put in whatever you want. Your tab widths, if you're going to use tabs, your semicolons, etc. You can use prettier, you cannot use prettier. You can configure it here, or you can configure it in your editor. For me, it really doesn't make a difference whether you have all your code like the same or not, but I just find if you're sharing across many teams, it's easier, everyone's code is the same. So I always use prettier when working with other team members. For ESLint, this is the actual standard that comes out of the box from Nuxt, so I actually don't need to do anything here. It's just showing you what it does, but then in my rules at the bottom, I can define my rules like this: no debugger and no console. Who here has ever shipped to production a console log? Yeah, you're all lying because you didn't put your hand up. Okay, we've all done it. So this is going to stop you from doing it. Okay, so you put it in, and on the pre-comment it checks. If you've got a console log in there, you basically cannot make a comment. And I think that's really, really important because it stopped a lot of errors. For our style.int config, you can basically just extend the configs of the standard and prettier, and the plugin is style.int.scss if you're using Sass. Things I like to do, like no color names, because if I'm using Sass, why am I going to put a color name like color blue inside my component? And no hex values as well. Why am I going to put a list when you're using Sass? Just makes it easier then. If you need to change the colors, need to change anything, you go to your Sass file, you change it all there. No empty sources. Sometimes we write something, we delete it, and we leave it there, so this just checks. No new line, and you can put as many rules in there as you want. There's like extensive amount. To add global Sass variables. So here who uses Sass? Yeah, okay, cool. So we've got like variables, and you've got your mixins, etc. If you need to put that into your component, you've got to put it in, and you've got to import that one in every single component, and that's super annoying. So with the nuxt.js style resources, you can share your variables, mixins, functions across all style files, and no import is needed. How cool is that? Okay, there's support for Sass, Lass, and Stylus. And this is all you got to do. You just put it in, nuxt.js style resources into your modules in your Nuxt config, and then you just say style resources, my Sass is equal to my assets, CSS, variables.css. And it's an array, so you can put in more if you have more files to add in. Okay, so this is really cool. If you're not using this, you should use it. I think actually this was built by Alex. Am I right? Yes. Okay, so if it doesn't work, speak to him. Another one I also add is purge CSS. So purge CSS, as you can see here, I've added into my modules, Nuxt purge CSS. And then I just say purge CSS, mode is post CSS. What purge CSS does is it looks through all your CSS and just basically deletes everything that you're not using. So it's really, really cool, and it can really take out, especially if you're using libraries like Bootstrap or Beautify or Tailwind. It basically takes away everything that you're not using and only ships the code that you're using. So it's really, really worth adding in. Pre-comment hooks. So I use Husky. Okay, basically for your pre-comment hooks, all you've got to do, you normally get this already, your dev, your build, your start, and then basically on your generate, that's all done. And you add in your style lint and your lint if you're using those. And then basically you just say Husky with your hooks. Pre-comment is, use your cross-end variable, pre-comment equals 1, and then npm run lint and run your style lint. And that means on every single commit, I'm running those, which means no developer can add any code that I do not like to a commit. It can never be pushed. It's great. So I have full control. Okay. Deploying to GitHub. Who here has ever used GitHub to deploy a page? Yeah, cool. Okay. So I like to put a lot of stuff on GitHub because I think GitHub's pretty cool. And to deploy to GitHub, all you've got to do is in your nuxt config, you basically just got to change the root because you know that GitHub Pages puts your page name before in the root. It changes the root, so you're not using your normal root. So for example, I have a page in GitHub called Get Started with Nuxt, so I need to add that to the start of my root, otherwise it won't work in GitHub Pages. So const router base, process env deploy env is equal to GitHub Pages, and I just say my router base is this. If I change the name of the page, I just need to change this. Module exports, just object assign it to the router base, and then module mode universal and all the way down, all the usual nuxt config stuff. Pretty simple, right? And then in my package JSON, I just say generate GitHub Pages. This is what I'm going to call. And I basically deploy to GitHub Pages, calling the nuxt generate, and the deploy command, which basically pushes the directory of dist into the GitHub Pages and then just clean it up. Which basically means I just do npm run generate GitHub Pages and npm run deploy. Pretty cool, right? Do you believe me? Yes. Totally. It's so cool. Okay, how are we doing for time? Cool. So would you like to see me actually live deploy something? Okay, this is like, I don't know, they didn't really react very well. I don't think anyone really wants to see it. Okay. Who wants to see me deploy live to GitHub? Okay. Oof, pressure's on. Okay, so I've got to like do all this stuff. Okay. Oh, we're seeing it. Okay, so this is just a simple page. Now I've got to find my mouse down here. Okay. So this is just a simple app I created to help my team to learn Nuxt in Vue. And I'm just going to change something very simple. I'm going to say, let's learn Nuxt in Vue in Verona. Yeah? Okay. Just in case you don't believe like this is real, it's now 12:58. So I'm just going to put 12:58. Okay. And the date. Oh, seriously? No, I think this is enough, right? 12:58. We're good with 12:58. And then I'm going to actually just show you my. Ooh, don't go there. I'm going to show you my package JSON so you can see here. Okay, and all I've got to do, my get status, okay. I've changed my index.vue as you've seen. I'm going to add it. I'm going to do sending love from Verona. Okay, check that out. Okay, you can see that it ran my lint and it ran my style lint, yeah, and I didn't have any errors. Code is good. Okay, so that's all done. And now I've got to do, as you can see, npm run generate. I don't want to generate in normal. I want to generate with GitHub Pages. This doesn't work, then something's wrong, but it's looking good. Okay, my client is being loaded. My server is being loaded. Remember, this is a static site, so it's generating the pages that I need to use. And it generated my layout setup. These are all the pages I've created, my Nuxt setup, my Sass configuration, my routes, my template, all generated. So now, can anyone tell me what I need to do? Okay, what is my command? npm run deploy. Bam, it's pushing to the directory, the dist, GitHub Pages, and it's cleaning it up. Okay, so now, the real test, is it going to show what it's meant to show? Okay. I think the hardest thing here is actually just changing the screen rather than the actual deploy. So let's have a look. Okay, so we've got this one, and where's my mouse? Let's go here. So this is what I had before I started, okay? So technically, if I refresh the page, it's going to show it, right? Let's have a look. Let's see if it works. Whoa! Check it out! So as you can see, Let me go back to play. Where's my mouse? Back here. Okay. As you can see, deploying to GitHub Pages takes seconds. When I figured this out first, it was a Saturday night. It was about, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night, and I was on my own coding. And I pushed it, my first one to GitHub Pages, deploy, and I just danced around the room. I just got up and went, yes, I did, yes. And then I tweeted about it as well. I was so excited. So if you haven't tried doing this, you really should try it because it really is so simple, okay? It's so simple, just do it, it's cool. Okay, so basically, we've done that. Oh, we're going the wrong way. We'll go this way, it's better. So we got Nuxt benefits. Other benefits of Nuxt, you got async data. So it fetches the data before the page is sent to the client. It fetches the data before the page is sent to the client. So you can sync your data or define the data that you want rendered on the server side. And this is then merged with the actual component data. So if you have your data in your component and then you use your async data, it gets merged together. At the moment, async data can only be applied to the components in the pages directory, okay? Don't try putting it in your component itself because it won't work yet. The Nuxt team are on it, and the next Nuxt 3, I think, is coming out. It's going to have that so you can actually put it in the component. But for now, only in the pages. Code splitting, as we know, you get every root gets its own JavaScript file with just the code that's needed to run on that root, and you do not need to actually do anything. It just does it automatically. This, for me, was my favorite part. Just automatic. Code splitting. Brilliant. Page transitions. So each page gets wrapped in a transition element, and you can easily create transitions between pages, which is really cool. So, for example, all you got to do is put page-enter-active, page leave active, and just put a transition opacity or whatever you want. You can do an animation in there, and then just add this to your CSS file, and you've got automatic page transitions. How cool is that? Did you know you can also do layout transitions? Okay, we have heard that you have layouts, so you can have a different layout for your blog. In Patterson Travel site, we have a different layout for our contact page and our copyright pages, and a different layout for our normal pages. So we can have different layouts, and then we just call the class layout interactive or layout leave active, layout enter, layout leave active, and opacity 0, etc. You can also have page-specific transitions. So if you wanted one page to have something just completely different and special, say the About page wants to be a little bit more special, then you can just call About interactive, About leave active, About enter, About leave active. So it's really, really cool, okay? And all you've got to do to make that work is then go to your About page, yeah, it's called about.vue, and then you just put in the export default, transitions, About. What is what you call the class, okay? And that just gets applied, and it works. It's pretty, really cool. So go and play around with transitions. Just have fun. So why Nuxt? Well, Nuxt is easy to get started. It has an absolutely great community. It's got great documentation, and it has a fantastic chat. Who here uses the Nuxt chat? Okay, the core team member and 2 speakers. Okay, I actually understand because I didn't know that it existed either. I found it really, really hard to find the actual chat, and I'll probably, if I have time, I'll show you. But it's really, really simple to find it. If you go and search through all the menu on the right-hand side and go through all the drop-down, it's now in the README. It should be just there, a link on the home page. But we'll work on that. I try and change the Nuxt docs so that you can see it more clearly, okay? But basically, if you do download it, because Discord, I didn't know anything about what Discord was, and then I started using it. Basically, I can tell you that I have bothered Alex, I don't know how many times a day, and oh my God, how do I do this? This is not working. Not just Alex, but other core team members and other fantastic developers are constantly online, constantly helping you out. I have never seen a community so helpful in just answering your questions all day, and you don't feel like you're bothering anyone because, you know, if nobody answers, nobody answers. So really, go ahead and use the Nuxt chat. The Vue chat is also the same. It's also in Discord, so really well worth looking at. You should follow Nuxt on Twitter for the latest up-to-date news, including what companies have started to use Nuxt as their framework of choice. We've already seen from Alex's slides the companies that are using it, but this is my favorite that came out on Twitter. So Adidas have chosen Nuxt for their developer portal. How cool is that? I should get a round of applause. No, Adidas have got it, okay? So when I said to my client, your website, we're using Nuxt, and they're like, okay. I said, we've got the same code as Adidas. And they're like, okay then. It's cool. So how do you learn Nuxt? Okay, has anyone heard of Vue Mastery, Vue School, or Front-End Masters? Yeah? Okay, who here uses Vue Mastery? Okay, a few. Who here uses Vue School? Okay, a few. So you should be all using these. Okay, who here uses Front-End Masters? Probably more people? No, not so much either. Okay. So these are the best tools, in my opinion, for learning Nuxt. I don't recommend one over the other. I actually recommend using them all. So Vue Mastery has some excellent videos. They're also very, very cheap. So they have a monthly subscription. It's really, really cheap. Vue School as well is even cheaper. And Vue School is actually core team members of Vue. So the core team members of Vue are actually putting out the courses. And they work as well. For their Nuxt courses, they work with the Nuxt core team. So all the code that you see in these, it's probably being checked over by every core team member, by the Nuxt core team, so it's good. And the front-end masters, well, you've got Evan Yu has a course on there. I mean, how can you get better than that? You've also got Sarah Drossner, who's my hero, and she has an amazing course on there as well. And she's actually recording a new one as well, so that's coming up soon. So well worth checking those out. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, my question for you today is, are you Nuxt?